So, good afternoon, class. Today is April 6, Tuesday. So, I'm Miss Dannielle Pajardo and I will be your instructor for today. Before I discuss, please open your cameras for our screenshot. It will be served as your attendance. Can you see my presentation, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
So, our lesson for today is about open questions. Does anyone here has an idea what is an open question? If none, let me continue. So, please read, Miss Kundangan.
Hello, ma'am. So, open questions can't be answered with yes or no. They are formed differently depending on the main verb of the question.
So, an open question is a question that cannot be answered with a yes or no response or with a static response. These are questions that requires one person to answer in their own words. They are formed differently depending on the main verb of the question that I will discuss later on. So, first, open questions with B. Please read, Miss Ella.
Open questions with be. If the main verb of the sentence is be, the question word goes at the beginning of the question, and the form of be goes straight after it.
Thank you. So first, let me define what is be. The verb be is used as an auxiliary verb and it can also be used as a main verb. The verb be is irregular. It has 8 different forms: be, am, is, are, was, were, being, been. The present simple and past tenses make more changes than those of other verbs. So I have example here. My name is Sarah. What is your name? Okay, let me discuss it to you. Our question word here is the word what. This is our question word. Then, our main verb or our be here is the word is. As you can see, the question word is located at the beginning of the question, just like what Ella said. And the main verb or the be goes straight after it. If someone asks you what is your name, can you answer yes? Of course not. You'll have to say your name. These questions can't be answered with yes or no. So, next slide. I have here further examples. What is Ruby's job? So, our question word here is what again? And our be or main verb here is the word is. This is our main verb. So, our question word what follows by our main verb, which is again the word is. Another example is where were you last night? Again, our question word here is where. Then our main verb here is where. The main verb goes straight after the question word where. Then another example is what is this thing? Question word plus main verb and the rest of the sentence. So next is how was the concert? Why are we all here? Why aren't you at school? So as you can see, all the question words are at the beginning. How, why, and then followed by the main verb or our be. Was, aren't you at school? So now, how to form a open question with be. So first, the question word like what, where, how, why will be at the beginning of your question or sentences. then you need the be or the main verb like is, was, and the rest of the sentence. So here we can form what is your name. It formed with the question word at the beginning, then the be goes straight after it, and the rest of the sentence. Are you getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, open questions with other verbs. Please read, Miss Kondangan.
Open questions with other verb. For all questions except those formed with be, the question word is followed by an auxiliary used verb. If there is already an auxiliary verb in the sentences, it is also used in the question. If there is no auxiliary verb, a form of do is added.
Thank you. So, all questions except those formed with be, the one that I've discussed earlier, the question word is followed by an auxiliary verb. If there is no auxiliary verb in the question, a form of do is added. Before moving on, we will define first what is auxiliary verb. A verb such as have, be, may, do, shall, will, can, or must that is used with another verb to show the verb tense, to form a question, etc. An auxiliary verb is a verb that adds functional or grammatical meaning to the clause in which it occurs so as to express tense, aspect, modality, voice, emphasis, and many more. Again, if there is no auxiliary verb in the question, a form of do is added. So here's an example. Who should I call? First, what is our auxiliary verb here? The word should. The auxiliary verb should is already in the sentence, so it stays on. Another one is, when do you eat lunch? The question word goes at the beginning again. This is our question word, just like open questions with be. So as you can see, the word do is added here, because the questions doesn't have auxiliary verb. So we add do. When do you eat lunch? And then the subject and then the rest of the sentence. Also, the main verb eat changes to its base form. Still, these are open questions that can be answered with yes or no. So next slide. Another set of example. Where do you go swimming? The question word here is where, while our auxiliary verb here is the word do. This is our auxiliary verb. Then after that, the subject follows, which is you. This is our subject, auxiliary verb, and our question word. What does she do on the weekend? Our question word here is what. Then our auxiliary verb here is does, and then our subject is she. Again, question word, auxiliary verb, and subject. Then the rest of the sentence. Which car do you drive at work? When does he finish work? Why did you stay up so late? As you can see, our question words are at the beginning, then followed by the auxiliary verb and the subject. Each question word, auxiliary verb, and then the subject. Another one is question word, auxiliary verb, and then the subject. This is our pattern here. Question word, auxiliary verb, and then the subject. So next slide. How to form a open questions with auxiliary verb. First, we need a question word, which is when. WH questions or others are applicable. Then the auxiliary verb like do, did, should, and then we need the subject like you, he, she, And then lastly, our main verb or the rest of the sentence. So in here, we can form when did you eat lunch? So do you have any question, guys?
None man so far po.
So that is open questions with auxiliary verb. These are open questions that can be answered with yes or no. So I think that's it for the last part of our discussion. Can you please read, Miss Ella?
Form two open questions, one with be and one with an auxiliary verb.
So I will give you 2 minutes to form those two types of open questions. Then you must explain to us the parts of it, which is question word, main verb, or auxiliary verb, and the subject. So 2 minutes starts now. Just raise your hand if you have answered already. Yes, Miss Christine?
Yes, ma'am. So for the questions word with be, my example po is how was your day? So the question word is how and the be or the main verb is the word was. So for the questions word with auxiliary verb po, what should I do now? So the question word is what, the auxiliary verb is should, and the subject po is I.
Very good. That's correct. Christine gave a good example. How about
For the question word with be, where is the shopping center? The question word po is what, then the be or the main is the word is. And for the question word with auxiliary verb, when did you get caught? When did you get a cat? The question word is when, then the auxiliary verb is do, and the subject is you.
Very good also. So that's it for today's class. Hope you learn and feel free to ask or chat me if you are confused or did not understand some parts about this topic. So goodbye guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.